so excited to be here today to start the Advent season with you. You know, the Christmas is such a wonderful holiday. And I'm so pleased that I will begin the Advent and I will close it on Christmas Day. It's so exciting. So Advent is a time, as we've already begun to hear, it's preparing for Christmas. And it's preparing for the birth of the Christ consciousness. I think it's only important that we speak a moment about what that Christ consciousness is. You know, it's that higher self within all of us, but it's when we can let go of the physical world. It's when we let go of all of that which is part of our senses and rise to our place of divinity, our spirituality, when we can rise above. It's an embodiment of the divine ideas, intelligence, life, love. It's all of those wonderful God attributes that we talk about all the time. Courage, joy, freedom, and peace. This Christ consciousness is the perfect idea existing internally in divine mind. It's that energy, that flow of a consciousness, of awareness, of love, of a beauty that exceeds all that we know. It's the higher self of every individual becoming and expressing itself in divine ways. Each of us has within us that Christ consciousness, as Jesus said. And each of us has to look within to find that divine birth of the God, of Christ within us. The Christ consciousness is talked about in the field of unity and new thought all of the time. We talk about it all the time, of building that. And the mystics talk about that Christ consciousness when all of a sudden you experience the numinosity of love, when you experience all that is so wonderful and precious, and everything seems to fall into place, and it is a divine plan, and all is as it should be. They talk about that moment when you feel it, and you know that love so completely that you know that all is absolutely well. We hear about it, we talk about it, and yet, do we pursue it? Do we really look to it? Do we really find the time to prepare ourselves for the birth of that consciousness? It's a bringing about a new awareness, a new consciousness, the true nature of our being. So it's the time for us to prepare for the birth of that consciousness. Now, it's alive in all of us all the time. But Christmas, this Advent season, is a time when we put special attention, when we say, now is the time to prepare for a greater expansion of that divine within us. It's a time when we really begin to cultivate our spirituality, when we really begin to cultivate those attributes of love and joy. It's that time when we really open our hearts to that love of God. In the Christmas story, the stable is very much a symbol of the heart. And why the stable? Because usually it means getting back to what really matters. What really matters. The stable is very simple. The stable is very innocent. It's very plain in many ways. There are no special trappings, there are no special things. It's when we get in touch with that which is very basic within us. There's a place within us where we can meet God knowingly. It's where we talk about the heaven within. We sing about the heaven within. Are we cultivating our spirituality so that we may experience the heaven within and touch our own Christhood? contrast to the stable is the inn. The inn's the symbol of our superficial way of living, okay? That where everything is how busy we get and distracted from the depth of our spiritual truth of our being. It's the hustle and bustle of our lives. It's very much part of our physical senses. And yes, we live in the physical world. So it's only appropriate that we experience our physical senses, and we do have fun and excitement and shopping and doing all those wonderful things. And it's appropriate that we do that. And yet at the same time, it's appropriate that we cultivate the state. At the same time that we begin to appreciate our spirituality. The quiet heart is where the Christ consciousness comes from. Now, we can have that quiet heart in doing all the things that we are doing. So that it is being in the world of all the physical, and yet not of it, that it is only that which we are. Because we are more than the physical. We are the spiritual. And that is what we begin to cultivate during this Advent season. There's a part of us, though, wants to resist that. I don't have time for that. I don't know spirituality. Don't know what to do. I don't know what you're talking about. We kind of resist this whole notion of that. And that is a part of us that is referred to as King Herod. We all have a King Herod in us. All of us, okay? King Herod, in the story, of course, he is the one who rules the physical, rules all of our senses. It's the ruling ego within that does not want to allow time to prepare for the manger, to acknowledge the true being of who we are. King Herod is the flesh. It's only the flesh. It's only the physical, the material world. And he generally has very narrow thinking. One who lives with passions of the flesh and wanting nothing but flesh consciousness. That's Herod. And it represents all of the destructive patterns that can take us down. You know, the addictions that we have, the prejudices, the inner poisons, all those things. I mean, there's a lot of King Herod going around these days. You know, a lot of King Herod. And when you see it, remember, think about that. That is King Herod. Those are the egos. That's of the flesh. That is all the physical. And for the most part, that is the illusion. The physical is just all that's there. The truth of who we are is that spiritual essence, that Christ consciousness that is being born within us, that is so much more than the physical. Be reminded of that every time you experience King Herod coming forth. When we look to our spiritual nature, earnestly seeking that inner luminosity, that inner illumination, then we can open our heart and prepare the manger for the divine. Sometimes we get focused on money. You know, there's so many things at Christmas that are about money. You know, we say, well, if I have enough money in the bank, I'm going to be okay. Many of us will find security and, if I have enough money and I've got myself set up, my financial plan is in order and I'm going to be okay. Well, what about your spiritual plan? We have financial plans. We have daily organizers. Plans for our activities, and this and that. What is your spiritual plan? Advent is an invitation. This is a time for you to consider, what is my spiritual plan? How can I be more on guard that I am not so caught up in the activities of all of the physical that I neglect? It's a great story about Christmas. It was a small Midwest town where some of the slow kids were kind of kept back. And Wallace Perling was one of those slow kids. He was like 9 years old. He was in second grade. And, he just kind of slow, but people liked him. You like someone like that. Miss Robinson decided to use Wallace in the Christmas pageant. And she decided to give him the role of the innkeeper. So he was bigger than all the other kids, and he was kind of like this. She said, oh, he'll be perfect, So on the night of the pageant, Wally was so excited, they had to assign a kid to stand with him to be sure he didn't go out there before he was supposed to go because he was so excited. Finally, it came his turn. He goes out on stage, and Mary and Joseph come and knock on the door, and he says in a gruff voice, who's there? And Joseph identified who we are, and Wally says, well, what do you want? And Joseph says, well, we need a place to stay. And Wally says, you can't stay here. And the inn is full. And Joseph said, please, Mr. Innkeeper, my wife is pregnant and, has a child. I'm sorry, my wife is having a child, and we need a place to stay. And Wally says, well, no, you can't stay here. And Joseph pleads again. It's cold outside, please. And then Wally's just standing there, staring at them. And he seems to have lost it. He's just looking at them. And off stage, the prompters are whispering, say, be gone now, be gone now. You're supposed to say, go away, go away. Finally, Wally in a wooden voice says, be gone. But there's no energy behind it. Joseph turns and takes Mary's arm and begins to walk off the scene. Then all of a sudden, the story was changed in a way that never had been heard before, because Wally, with tears streaming down his cheeks, he says, Joseph, wait, come back. You can have my room. To me, the story just is such a metaphor for what can happen when we open our heart, when we begin to attend to the spiritual aspects of ourselves. What happens when we do that, when we open up to the joy of the season in a whole new, wonderful way? Christmas can be a time of transforming. It can be a time of refocusing. It can be a time of rededicating. Plan your activities. Begin with your family and with your loved ones. Can you plan a time for spirituality? What would that be like? What about some time to read the Christmas story? What about some time to just be together without activity, but being with your loved ones, sharing things? What about time for special meditations and just being together, or singing Christmas songs? Is there a time when we really plan for our spiritual side of ourselves? Preparation for the birth of the Christ consciousness begins today. This is the day, the first day of Advent. And there's 4 Sundays before Christmas. And as was shared today is the candle of faith. However, in most Christian traditions, it's not the candle of faith, but it's the candle of hope. Unity decided to change it to faith because faith is so much stronger and more powerful in its intention and in its knowingness than hope. Yet I believe that hope is a stepping stone to faith. When you are hopeful, it puts you in kind of a positive place. When you think about, I hope that this might be. We think more positive thoughts. It might even be kind of like, well, I hope that this happens. It's almost like a visualization. Webster defines hope as a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. Hope is powerful. So if you are embracing anything in your life and you don't quite have faith, faith is complete trust and confidence that a certain thing is going to happen. Faith is complete trust and confidence that it is done. It's a knowingness that yes, it is so. Hope isn't quite there. Hope is an expectation and a desire. So if you are in a place where you're saying, my faith may not be strong in this regard, and sometimes we all encounter those things in life where I don't know where my faith is. We can hope. Hope is a stepping stone that leads us to faith. So I have an invitation for you this week to think about who needs words of hope. Who do you know that needs some words of hope? It is sometimes difficult for us to expand our faith to others, but it is not so difficult for us to do those things which might generate hope for others. How can you bring hope to someone this week? The story of a lovely lady was back in the Depression years. She opened her door one day, and on the doorstep there was a basket of food, the kind they give to needy people on the doorstep. She was quite insulted. She didn't need a basket of food. In fact, it kind of irritated her, and then she even got angry about it. She took the basket of food and she kind of put it in the kitchen out of the way. She said, I don't need that. What are they doing delivering that here? She didn't even unpack it. She just ignored it. The next day, there was another basket. And she just kept putting them in the kitchen, kind of out of the way. She said, I don't know why everybody's doing this. I don't need this food. And every day, they kept showing up, one after another after another. Well, by the end of the week, she had 7 of these things. So what am I going to do with them? So she decided I need to do something. So she found some people who needed food and gave them the baskets. But for the next 2 weeks, the baskets kept showing up. Every day there was a basket. And she kept trying to find places to give them. She didn't need it, so she kept trying to find other people to give the baskets to. And then something happened. She kind of began to get happy and like this process of trying to find people to give these baskets to. It all of a sudden became a fun kind of thing. She felt she was giving hope to some people. And it just resonated in her heart. And then the baskets stopped coming. So she decided to make her own baskets. And she would continue to give. Something had been rekindled in her. And now she had it. She said this, someone knew I was really a very poor and needy person and found the best possible way to help. Giving her an opportunity to give to others. I think it's a story about hope. That for all of us, no matter what may be going on in our lives, there's hope. There's hope, that an expectation that something could be different, that there is hope that things can change. There is hope that each of us, I invite you to feel hope, that each of us can experience that birth of that Christ consciousness within us. It may not be that we have that faith, that knowingness, the conviction, the total knowing that it is going to be so. We may not be there. And if we are, praise God. And if we aren't, hope leads to faith. So where can you give hope? In giving, in spending time with people. What can you do to give hope to others and yourself, to rekindle some hope? Hope for a better world. Hope for a peaceful world. Can we begin to hope for that which we desire? May not have the face yet, but you can hope for that, and in so doing, begin to prepare the This week, I invite you to contemplate hope. Hope that will lead to faith. Look at where you do have faith, where you have that strong faith, knowing that it is so. And where do you need to hope? And where can you help another to have hope? What words can you say? What gift can you give? What time can you spend that can generate hope for all of us? Because it begins to prepare the world for the birth of the Christ consciousness. Mother Teresa used to see so many poor people in the work that she did. And there's a story about Mother Teresa who one time, she was seeing some people who came in and they were all decked out in very expensive clothes and had arrived in a limousine and they were, whatever. And she spent a considerable amount of time with them. And some of her followers said, how can you do that? How can you give your time to those people? You should be giving your time to the poor. And she said, they need hope as much as anything. We all need hope. No matter what is happening in our physical world, no matter what is unfolding, let us collectively have hope for a better world, a peaceful world, a loving world, so that our hope